Buster Douglas may have been more like months, not moments, months of not staying in the shape that it takes to retain the heavyweight boxing crown. 14 pounds heavier than when he beat Mike Tyson in February. Douglas rolled in and didn't even last 3 rounds against Evander Holyfield in Las Vegas at the Mirage, which is what Douglas's title now looks like. The fight was relatively uneventful Thursday night for the first 2 rounds. Early in the third, though, Douglas missed a right uppercut. And what it did was open the way for Holyfield to connect with a straight right to the chin that would drop Douglas and made him the 17th heavyweight champ to lose the title in his first defense. Douglas on the left there in the white trunks, Holyfield in the orange. Holyfield now 25-0, 21 of his 25 wins, knockouts. Douglas is 30-5, he had 1 draw. Douglas entered the ring a 7-5 underdog. Holyfield was not the attacker that he had been in a lot of his earlier fights. Instead, he boxed with Douglas, while Douglas appeared to be looking to counterpunch. So the moment of truth is over. The end of the reign of Buster Douglas as heavyweight champ. A short reign, knocked out by Evander Holyfield Thursday night in Las Vegas at 1:10 of round number 3.
I trained hard and I worked hard to come out and prepare myself for a tough fight. Even if the fight would have went 12 rounds, it would pretty much have been the same. I went out and I was able to execute, and he made a mistake and I was able to capitalize on it. And I was ready to fight. You know, it was just a thing of getting my mechanics to work accordingly, and it didn't work out like that.
After that first round, when Evander came back, what you tell him?
After he come back, I said, baby, you're boxing just like a champ out there. Your tempo is perfect. Keep doing what you're doing. The only thing is, watch for an uppercut. When he throws an uppercut, you know what to do. That was one of the adjustments we had. If he threw an uppercut from a low position, all we had to do was go over in the right. If he threw from a stand-up position, he was going to rock back and throw the right hand. And that's what he did. He rocked back and threw that right hand. You know, like I said, Wally, before, fighters don't beat fighters. Styles beat fighters. Adjustments beat fighters. And when you get a guy out there that knows how to execute, you got a hell of a fighter.
SNN's Wally Bruckner in Las Vegas covering the moment of truth. It will now be interesting to see Holyfield will fight next. The IBF, WBC, and WBA have all declared that the Douglas Holyfield winner would have to fight Mike Tyson. But Holyfield is already under contract to fight George Foreman, who's actually heavier than Douglas at 260 pounds.
Evander said George Foreman's next.
Yes. He left it up to my son, Danny. Danny's his exclusive promoter. Nobody has anything to do with it. And this is a breath of fresh air in boxing. This is the first time that those monsters down here don't have their claws into the heavyweight fight. This is what we've got. We've got something going out there that the public belongs to the heavyweight championship. In the days of Joe Louis, of Rocky Marciano, Giorgio Walcott, those are the days that we want to bring back over here. Guys like Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield will fight anybody. But the first, I think that right now, the first fight we're looking at is George Foreman.
There is no fear of one of the organizations coming in and say, we're going to take your title if you don't fight what we decreed?
Let them start. Let them start, and then they're really going to see the Duva family while operating.
Well, he could work things out, at least in a compromise with the IBF, because the president, Bob Lee, has said that Holyfield would have a year to fight Tyson, so it's conceivable that Holyfield could fight Foreman first and then Tyson, as long as it's within the next 12 months.
Coming up on SportsCenter, the moment of truth turned out to be a painful one for Buster Douglas. Evander Holyfield is the new champ, and it looks like George Foreman is next.
I'm the next heavyweight champ of the world. Put your money on it.
Okay, George.
Moment of truth. The heavyweight title bout between the champion, James Buster Douglas, and the challenger, Evander Holyfield. And for those who are ringside at the Mirage Hotel in Las Vegas, it probably didn't seem like it took more than a moment or two.
No, a moment or two. It seems to be about how long Buster Douglas held on to the heavyweight championship. You may recall in February, Buster Douglas ended Mike Tyson's 4-year reign as heavyweight champ, but 8 short months and 15 pounds later, there's a new heavyweight champion. His name is Evander Holyfield, and Charlie Steiner heads up the ESPN crew in Las Vegas, which witnessed firsthand Holyfield's quick but thorough 3-round demolition of Douglas.
Well, they call this promotion the moment of truth, and in reality, the moment of truth took place on Wednesday afternoon when Buster Douglas tipped the scales literally at 246 pounds. And then on Thursday night here at the Mirage at 1 minute and 10 seconds of round 3, Evander Holyfield knocked Buster Douglas flat. And we have a new heavyweight champion in Evander Holyfield. We got immediate reaction after the fight. Wally Matthews had a chance to talk with the new champion, and Eric Clemens had a chance to talk with the ex-champion.
went out there and I fought a smart fight, and I was able to capitalize on his mistake, and I caught him with a good right hand coming in, and I knew I had the power to knock anybody out if I catch him right.
Well, you really caught him with a perfect shot, and it seemed almost as if you were expecting him to throw that uppercut at that time. Was it just kind of a luck thing or an anticipation, or were you expecting the punch?
Well, actually, I went out there, and I thought he was going to throw a jab, and I was going to counter the jab. But he would sometimes catch me with a short left hook at times when I move in, where I was too aggressive, got too close. So the whole thing is that I used my jab, and I worked out my jab, and I faked like I can come in. Then I'd seen him got ready to dip to throw the right uppercut, and I was able to step back and counter.
I didn't get on. It took me time to get myself. I felt myself coming. But, you know, it was just that I overextended myself and got caught with a good shot. And I take nothing away from Evander. He's a tremendous fighter and seems to have a bright future as a champion.
Ray Leonard and Al Bernstein joining me now. Ray, they talked about Evander Holyfield being a blown-up cruiserweight. As it turned out, in many respects, Buster Douglas was just plain blown up.
Well, Evander Holyfield did what Buster Douglas should have been doing. That was pressing the attack, using the jab, and working the body. And as a matter of fact, it was Evander Holyfield that fought like he was the champion. He took total control of the first, second, and third round. In fact, he knocked out Buster Douglas. I was very surprised and also very impressed with Evander Holyfield.
Al Bernstein, what about the excess baggage? Of course, Buster was slow to get off. He said it himself, and it was obvious to everybody who watched the fight. Obviously, that played some impact on all of this.
Yeah, I think more than the weight itself, what the weight represented is what took effect in this fight. At 246, clearly Buster Douglas was not in good shape. The way he fought indicated it. Ray and I were discussing the fact that he was tired almost in the first round, and in the third, you could really see it. So the lack of conditioning hurt him, even though this was a short fight, and it especially hurt him because he was knocked down by one punch and couldn't get up, whereas we've seen him, for instance, against Tyson, get knocked down with a real hard punch in a later portion of a fight and still get up. So the weight and lack of conditioning, in my opinion, is the story of this fight.
As we take a look at some of the still photos of tonight's fight, early on, the stars were certainly out, and a little bit later on, it would be James Buster Douglas who would see the stars from the ground up. First round, it was a matter of Holyfield taking right to the action.
Well, Holyfield was initiated. He was in there with the left jab, really breaking down Buster Douglas. I was so surprised because Buster Douglas, the bigger man, the longer reach, the weight, he had everything to his advantage, and it was Holyfield who took command of this fight.
Yeah, and I think that the jab that you talked about as we head into round 3 here, which will be the real moment of truth, with him landing the big right hand against Buster Douglas, the fact that he took the jab away set all this up because Douglas expected to be able to jab well against Holyfield. Very disciplined performance by Holyfield. In the past, no one's questioned his heart, his stamina, or even his skills, but sometimes he gets a little undisciplined and gets hit with a lot of punches. That did not happen tonight. And here in round 3, before the big right hand, Douglas was doing a little more holding, a little more pushing and shoving, but when that moment came, Holyfield was ready for it.
You know, coming into this fight, the big question was which Buster Douglas would show up. And we found out tonight. It was not the Buster Douglas we saw in Tokyo, but the guy who had really been a journeyman heavyweight at best over his career, Al.
Well, you know, it's no fun bashing Buster Douglas. He's a nice guy. And, I'm sitting here saying some strong things about his lack of conditioning and the fact that he didn't appear to take this fight seriously. You don't want to bash him, but you know what? The fact is you have to an extent because he just wasn't prepared for this. And we did see the Buster Douglas who was not prepared for other fights, who quit against Tony Tucker, who had a draw against Stephan Tongstad when he came in at 251 pounds. That's the Buster Douglas we saw tonight. And if ever there was a moment when we needed to see a different Buster Douglas, it was now. But now it's unlikely whether Buster Douglas will be back in center stage for a long time, if at all.
Ray Leonard, what about this match in April? Evander Holyfield, George Foreman. If nothing else, it's going to be a fun promotion.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's going to be a great intrigue and mystique to this particular fight because George Foreman, here's another big guy. And here's a guy that wants to be big. He enjoys being big. And George, I tell you, don't count him out. George Foreman uses what he has. He uses his weight, his strength, but then again, here comes Evander Holyfield, the undisputed heavyweight champion.
And we will be there wherever and whenever when Evander Holyfield will defend his title for the first time against George Foreman. For Al Bernstein, Sugar Ray Leonard, I'm Charlie Steiner at the Mirage in Las Vegas. Let's go back to SportsCenter.
Thank you, gentlemen. James Buster Douglas joins the list of 13 heavyweight champions this century who lost their titles in their first defense. Among them, Bone Crusher Smith, who was decisioned by Mike Tyson, Tim Witherspoon, who fell to Pinklin Thomas, and Ken Norton, who lost 12 years ago to Larry Holmes.
Well, coming up later in this edition of SportsCenter, we'll hear from the ultimate heavyweight, George Foreman, who promises to belly up to the cheeseburger counter and then use that belly to beat Evander Holyfield. Back to the ring we go. We've already heard from the principal participants and some of the experts on hand in Las Vegas who witnessed Evander Holyfield's convincing third-round knockout of former champion Buster Douglas. Now let's hear from the man other than Holyfield who figures to gain the most from the new champion's victory. That would, of course, be George Foreman, who signed a contract to fight Holyfield in April.
I'm the next heavyweight champ of the world. Put your money on it. I can knock Evander Holyfield out in 2 rounds. Not 3, but 2 rounds. I'm going to show the whole world that the age 40 is not a death sentence. I was just begging for that opportunity. Now I've got a signed contract. Nobody can get out of it. I was the first contender in 1970. Now it's 1990. I'm a contender. I'm going to be heavyweight champ of the world. Nobody can stop me. I'm going to eat hamburgers and cheeseburgers. I'm going to belly bump that little guy all over the ring. I'm the next heavyweight champ of the world. Tell all my friends out there with the gray beards and what they call middle age and senior citizens. I'm going to hit them with my big senior citizen middle age serve sandwich. Screw you up the nose punch.
I wonder if George has got a patent for that screw you up the nose punch. Anyway, had Holyfield lost to Buster Douglas, Foreman would have only made $3 million by fighting Holyfield in April. But Holyfield is the new champion, and that means Foreman will make $12 million off his April encounter with Holyfield. Now you know why Foreman was so enthusiastic.
To undisputed heavyweight champ Evander Holyfield. Atlanta Mayor Maynard Jackson proclaimed this Evander Holyfield month in the city today. The Alabama native had his own parade on Monday and was greeted by close to 150,000 fans. Holyfield came to Atlanta, started boxing at age 8, brought along his mother, and of course the championship belt for all to see as he took the downtown scenic tour.